Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. This is episode number 202. I'm your host, the real _ G Warner, on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, wherever you can find me. Thank you for the support. And this is a little bit different because we got 46 minutes until the La Liga last match day or jornada kicks off. There's two sets of matches today that start at 11:30 Central Time here in Dallas, Texas, United States, also at 2 p.m. So I'm going to go through. We do have lineups on the early matches, and there's been a ton of movement overnight. So going to go through and try to find some plays live as we're about to get into this last day of the season. A lot of jeopardy. There's a bunch of teams in the bottom portion of the La Liga table that are all potentially going to get relegated today, all the way from Cadiz in 13th, all the way down to Valladolid in 18th, sitting in a relegation spot. So I think that's 6 clubs, if my math is right, and that's going to be pretty incredible. I'll try to come up with an ultimate best bet by the end of the show, but it's a little bit different format than most. Hopefully you're joining live. Happy Sunday. We'll go right through this, and then I guess it's time to handicap baseball after that. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered on almost every game you want to bet, right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So, like I said, we got only one league to look at, and we might as well jump in the first matchup of the day, and that is Osasuna hosting Girona. Currently Osasuna a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice, potentially climbing to a half of a goal. It's been there already this week. It's kind of been jockeying back and forth between a quarter and a half. The over-under is 2 3/4, juice pretty heavily to the under right now, which I think makes a lot of sense considering Osasuna have not really scored goals for a very long time. And I wouldn't really necessarily think that they're going to do that today. They deserved better last weekend, but a really bad goalkeeping error at the end ended up costing them a point. Osasuna currently sit on 50 points in the last European position, unless there's some sort of tiebreaker that I'm forgetting about. But they're tied with Osasuna are 1 point ahead of Girona, who they play today at home. They're tied with Athletic Club Bilbao, also 1 point ahead of Rayo Vallecano y Sevilla. So Mallorca are 3 points behind them. So there's probably some potential situation where Mallorca gets involved there too. So it's going to be a big run. And these matches that are starting at 11:30 Central Time are all probably based or have some sort of impact on the European places, whereas the relegation ones are later in the day at 2. I'm interested in Girona. I feel like they've been playing a lot better than Osasuna. Osasuna have essentially done nothing since they qualified for the Copa del Rey final, which they lost in. We see Aitor Fernandez in instead of Sergio Herrera and goalkeeper for Osasuna, I think a lot based on that really bad mistake that was made last week. When I look at the lineups, which I don't really have in front of me when doing these, so this is kind of cool. You see Abde Ezzalzouli, easy for me to pronounce at this hour, who's an awesome talent on loan for Barcelona. Ante Budimir, who's a big, tall Croatian striker who's going to be up top, and then Kiki Barja next to him. In the midfield, John Moncayola is finally out of his makeshift right back position, but is surrounded by Luca Toro, and who's a good young player, and then as well as Aymar Alroth, who's been really good, I think, for Osasuna. So this is looking like a pretty strong Osasuna team. I mean, they have everything to play for here, trying to get in and kind of hold on to their European position. As for the other side, got Tati Castellanos, former of New York City FC, who's in the Manchester City, I guess Girona are a sister club to Manchester City in some form or fashion. He's been super hot, hasn't been playing a ton lately, but I've been really impressed by Sigankov, the Ukrainian in midfield, who's been a great attacker. And when I see Oriol Romeu in as the defensive midfielder in the hole, that's a really important part of keeping that defense together. David Lopez and Bernardo and center backs is a little bit different, I think, than what they've been playing lately, with Wampe coming in there as well as others. But this is about as good as they can do it. I feel like Paulo Gazzaniga has been pretty good this season, so I'm pretty interested in the Girona side getting a quarter of a goal. Pretty much the home pitch advantage in this sport, I give a quarter of a goal for playing at home. I think it does feel with getting odds at a quarter that there's some value in Girona. I think I'm more interested if it hits a half of a goal, which it might do before we end up getting off this podcast, as it's been jockeying back and forth between that number. In terms of over under, I have some interest in the under 2 3/4. I think it's going to be a really tight game. both clubs are trying to, I mean, Girona need to win to get over Osasuna, I would assume, because they'll be 1 point behind them as they enter the day 1 point behind. So there might be a little bit more endeavor and attack from the visitor, but I also feel like that's a good spot to be in when you're a quarter goal underdog, because you essentially need to win to pay off the full bet. At a half of a goal, it's a little bit more different, where a draw would be good, but there's also so many clubs that are trying to catch up here. So draw might not be great, considering one of these clubs below them will get a win potentially, and that will hop over both of these clubs into a European position. But a lot of times when both teams don't want to draw, that's kind of what ends up happening. So next I'll move to the Mallorca hosting Rayo Vallecano match. This is a big one also. Rayo on 49 points. Tied with Girona, 1 point behind Osasuna. Mallorca on 47, have not been playing great towards the end of the season. But when I look at the lineups, Mallorca, they are not starting Pedro Rajkovic again, which makes me wonder if he's going to be sold in the summer or something like that. One of their great acquisitions from Stade de Reims in France. So I don't love that there's a goalkeeper that I don't really know playing for Mallorca right now, because they're still going to play defensive side. That's what Aguirre, the Mexican manager, does. And he has his full complement of center backs of Valiant, Rayo, y Copete in the back. Really important to see Kangin Lee starting again and Marici up top as one of the most dangerous strikers in this league and all of European football. We're looking at the Rayo side, who are a counterattacking outfit. They're going to go to Mallorca and probably try to concede possession, which usually doesn't work very well for an underdog, I gotta say. Excuse me, for a favorite to lose the possession battle as a favorite. I want underdogs that have a lot more of the ball. Mallorca don't want it either, though, and that also makes me think under is a really good idea in this one. We got 2.25 is the under right now. It's been kind of there the whole time. Low total, but not too low for Spain, because there's usually not a lot of goals expected. As opposed to the Mallorca lineup, looking at the Rayo Vallecano side, we got a little bit different of a formation this time, it seems, with Raul de Tomas, RDT up top, starting, seemingly finally taking over that position after really not playing much this season. Not as concerned about him. We got Moomin and as a center back, which is a little bit different, a little bit younger of an option. This is the last match for Andoni Iraola. I expect him to be going to Athletic Club, but maybe that's not confirmed just yet, as he's a former Athletic Club player. But looking at I guess the lineup doesn't look too different. Just Easy Palazón playing up top as what Google has right now. I'm not sure that I trust their lineup situations, but Falcao on the bench is kind of always been that way. Florian Lejeune not starting is a little bit interesting, as well as Pathé. I feel like that does limit their defensive capabilities a little bit. And honestly, Sergio Cameo has been better up front, I think, than anyone. Also the last match for Fran Garcia before he moves to Real Madrid. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I think this is still a very interesting time for Rayo Vallecano. They're still into this, and they still want to win and finish in a European place. But a lot of these players aren't going to be there next year. So I feel like that's even more pointing towards the Mallorca side, who've been so good at home on the island. And I think they still have one of the best scoring threats in this one, and that's Vida Marici up front. So I like Mallorca getting 1/4 of a goal, and I like two teams that don't want the ball not scoring a lot of goals and seeing under 2.25 to potentially hit as well. Next, we'll move to Real Madrid hosting Athletic Club Bilbao. A lot of movement on this one, specifically with the total as well. Currently, you see Real Madrid a 3/4 goal favorite at home, which is not really very large considering how well they've played at the Bernabeu for the whole season, but they've certainly seen a downtick in form once they were eliminated from Champions League and have really nothing to play for, where the Athletic Club are trying to find that European position, that last one ultimately. As for the total, it's climbed all the way to 3.25 now, very juicy the under at the moment, but I had it tracking at 2.75. So to climb half of a goal, like from game day, essentially, or match day or jornada, seems very interesting to me. When I look at the lineups, that usually is the way to explain it. It seems pretty normal for the Real Madrid side, at least. Benzema's in, despite all the rumors that he's moving on. Vinny Jr.'s return, maybe that's a big help, and he was potentially being expected out. That's probably a big reason for this one. Camavinga in the center of midfield means that Modric is not playing, or at least is coming off the bench. So that's certainly limiting for the Real Madrid midfield. Dani Ceballos starting is a little bit different. So, I mean, it's not the greatest Real Madrid side they put out there. I mean, the front line's as good as it can be. Rodrigo has been as hot as anybody. Benzema, of course, though he might be leaving for Saudi Arabia in the big money. Vinny Jr. coming back, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more of a stable environment at home where they won't be chanting racial slurs at him. As for the other side with Athletic Club, they got both the Williams brothers that are in the lineup. It's huge for their speed, pace, and really the threat they can pose. I think Guruzeta as their striker has been good for at least having some threat up top. Berenguer is not really doing much. He's on the bench today. On Sunset is back in the middle. Ander Herrera is a little bit of an interesting start in midfield, as well as Miguel Vesca. And then when I look at the back line, I still feel like Paredes, who's a young center back, is a major exploitable weakness for Real Madrid, who of course are one of the best clubs in the world. Denny Vivian is like the normal mainstay center back next to him, and I don't trust him either. So I think I'm just going to avoid Athletic Club. They're not getting a full goal of insurance. The under, I feel like, is going to be under threat, to say the least, with the Real Madrid attacking front line, and they haven't been defending as intently as they should have been. So it's hard to really trust what's going to happen there. Next, Real Sociedad hosts Sevilla. Currently, Real Sociedad a 1-goal favorite. Over under is 2 3/4, juice to the under. I don't probably have a lot to say about this one, just because Sevilla just won the Europa League in extra time, and ultimately it's very unlikely they care a lot about this matchup, though I guess they could find a European position, but they've already qualified for Champions League, so I don't think they really care today. You could argue the same for Real Sociedad, considering they've already clinched a Champions League spot despite losing last week. When I look at the Sevilla lineup, I mean, it's kind of a lot of mainstays, but then we got a central midfielder I don't know, also a left back I don't know. So I think that shows how much they care about this one. So I'm going to skip that one because there's not really an interest in an underdog there. Villarreal then hosts Atletico Madrid with some movement toward Atleti now being a pick'em, but with all the juice at the moment. Over under is 3 1/4, juice the under. Again, two clubs, not a lot to play for. Atletico Madrid potentially trying to climb into second position, win some extra money, and be able to look down at Real Madrid for a couple months in that table. Does it really matter? I'm not sure. But then when I look at the other side, and that's Villarreal, they don't have anything to play for necessarily. Starting a backup goalkeeper, which makes sense because they need to get younger there instead of playing a 40-year-old, because that's been problematic for them ever since and might have honestly kept them out of the Champions League is really big mistakes from their goalkeeping position. Nico Jackson has been awesome. Manu Trigueros with a rare start coming back in. And then you look at the Atleti lineup, still no goalkeeper, whoever's there normally, I forget, the Slovenian. But Grbić comes in, who's been in for a while. I don't necessarily see that to be a huge problem. The defensive line looks a lot healthier with Savic finally back, Axel Witsel as well in there. Maybe a younger midfield, but seeing Antoine Griezmann is always a good, comforting spot, I think, for Diego Simeone. So I'll leave that one behind. I'll move on to the 2 o'clock range here in the United States, probably 9 p.m. local kickoff time in Spain. I don't have lineups yet because they wouldn't come out for a couple hours. So I'll probably go a little bit quicker through these. Celta Vigo currently a pick'em right now, Barcelona. They are in the relegation spot and they're 1 point ahead of being relegated. So this is a big match for them. Tough for Celta to host Barcelona, the La Liga champions, but Barcelona have not been playing well for a long time. Haven't had much to play for, haven't cared, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure I'm that concerned. I think Celta de Vigo, though, they haven't won in a very long time, have lost 4 of their last 5 matches. So they're in a really tough spot. Over unders 2 3/4 with the juice split both ways. I'd lean under here, though. Celta de Vigo are not a defensive side. Barcelona really haven't scored much this year, though. So I think that's my interest. I'd love to see it hit 3. That would be awesome. I don't know necessarily that it'll get there. So we're going to wait and see on that one. Elche then hosts Cadiz. Currently, Cadiz in 13th position, but only 2 points ahead of a relegation spot. I think they're the closest to safety based on where they sit in the table, but it's clearly not done yet. Elche, who were one of the worst teams in La Liga history, have won or unbeaten in 4, have won 2 of those last 4, drew the other 2. So they've been a huge thorn in a lot of teams' side. Elche currently a pick'em with all the juice right now at home. So I'm waiting to see if Cadiz climb to a quarter goal underdog. I do think there might be a swan song last of time for Elche in the top division for at least a little while before they move down to Segunda División. But I don't necessarily see them as a team that should be favored despite a really good run of form lately, because Cadiz have a lot to play for. They've won 2 of their last 3, had a good win against Celta Vigo last weekend, just almost to clinch their safety. Over under is 2.5 in this one, juice to the over completely. I don't see a ton of goals with the Cadiz side, especially on the road. So I'm interested there. That number I feel like has been kind of jockeying a little bit juice wise, but still in that 2.5. Still feels like a high total. Yes, there's a lot on the line, but I think that's going to make everything a little bit more tight rather than wide open, especially with the Cadiz side involved and away from home. Next, we'll go Real Betis hosting Valencia, another relegation battle. I think these all are at this point because everyone seems to be mired in that type of trench. Real Betis, a pretty big home underdog right now. It's at Pick'em, but all the juice on Valencia on the road. Over under is 2.25, juice the over. And Betis, they have nothing to play for. They clinched their European spot. This is probably a swan song last day for Joaquin at home, which everyone loves at 41 years old or something like that, still playing soccer every weekend. He'll probably get a cameo towards the end. That'll be pretty emotional, but it doesn't really help Betis, who've been really, really not playing well for a long time now, it feels. And Valencia on the other side, they thought they were safe, but they're clearly still not safe, I don't think. Or maybe they are based on, they're 2 points ahead of Valladolid. If Valladolid win over Getafe, that means that Getafe are still ahead of them on the same amount of points. So I don't think they're guaranteed to get through, but it looks pretty like Valencia. I thought after the end of their last match, everyone thought they were safe, and I don't think that was the correct answer. So they're certainly getting a lot of respect, like they have something to play for based on the La Liga marketplace right now. Over under is 2.25, juice the over. I don't really see a ton of goals in this matchup, but Real Betis, because they haven't been scoring much at all, it's just a lot in this one that's hard to take. Not really sure what this match will do or what it will look like until we see lineups. So it's probably one of those that I should leave to the side and move on to the next matchup, which is Real Valladolid hosting Getafe. Currently Valladolid in that last relegation spot on 39 points, Getafe on 41 points. We're in the kit today. So I guess we're rooting for Getafe, though. Kind of be nice to have a throwback from when they were in La Liga if they got relegated today. But anyway, I like the jersey. So go Getafe. And that's the way I lean. I like them getting a half of a goal. It's very juiced at the moment. But it's requiring Valladolid, a team that makes a lot of big mistakes, to win a match. And with a ton of pressure on them, they'll definitely have a huge crowd support behind them because they're trying not to suffer relegations in 2 of 3 seasons. Probably will come back up from Segunda División if it happens, but ultimately something they're not trying for. Over-under is now fallen to 2. It's very juiced to the over right now, but I'm looking to see if potentially this comes back up to 2.25 because I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in this matchup. Getafe under Jose Bordalas has been really physical and will do everything they can to keep you from scoring. A draw, Getafe are safe, so they are certainly going to go on the road and try to keep Valladolid from scoring. I don't know that Valladolid have as much of a stable defense, which worries me big time for playing an under, but it would take a lot of mistakes. And after seeing a goalless draw last weekend with a pretty high total, I'm still pretty interested in the under there as well. And last but not least, we have Espanyol, newly relegated back to the Segunda División, suffering those 2 and 3 years like potentially Real Valladolid could as well. Almeria are visiting them. They are not safe yet on 40 points, could be leapfrogged by both Valladolid and Celta Vigo, to say the least. They are a pick'em right now on the road. More juice on Espanyol. This number is moving a lot all over the place. Started with Almeria as a favorite, getting odds, as a slight quarter goal favorite. It's fallen back to pick'em. I feel like Espanyol money has come in. I think there's a lot of pride in the Espanyol side. And will probably be a big celebration of their La Liga season, though it's certainly been a disappointing one, falling down to Segunda División. Over-under is 3.25, juice heavily to the under. Espanyol, really, they've not been a good defense all season. That's been their biggest problem. They've fared pretty well against other sides that were fighting relegation, which just didn't get enough points, it seems. I don't know necessarily that I feel anything for a total here. 3.25 seems really tall. I think Espanyol are going to give a great performance though, and that makes me feel like Almeria on the road is a team I'd like to bet against. Unfortunately, not having that quarter goal on the home dog, that kind of limits my interest. I think I'm interested in Espanyol move to an underdog again, but I don't think that'll happen based on the movement today and kind of how the juice is gone. So that's probably it for this episode. I'll summarize and come up. I guess I can go through each match because we still got 27 minutes to kick off. So I like Girona getting a quarter of a goal on the road at Osasuna. And I like the under there as well. Under 2.75. Would love 3, but that's not really going to happen. Mallorca getting a quarter of a goal at home to Rayo Vallecano, I like, and I also like under 2.25 there as well. Mallorca might be my best bet for this episode. Probably skipping Athletic Club and Real Madrid, also Real Sociedad Sevilla and Villarreal Atletico Madrid. I'm interested in Celta Vigo if they move to an underdog in the nightcap with Barcelona, though that's very risky, and we'll see what Barcelona puts out there for a lineup. I lean to under 2.75 in that one. Cadiz, I'm waiting to see if they climb to a quarter of a goal underdog because they still have something to play for, and I think they can really frustrate Elche. Also like under 2.5 in that one. Not much to do in Betis and Valencia. Valladolid and Getafe, I like Getafe getting a half of a goal on the road and also the under 2, but I'd like to see that hit 2.25. And I think for the last matchup, we'll see if Espanyol gets a little bit more movement in the other direction and turns to an underdog, but it doesn't look like that's going to be likely or that will happen. So if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please do a 5-star review. That'll help me to get up the search bar. For my ultimate best bet, I guess, why not? Just do it last minute. I'll go with Mallorca, a quarter goal underdog at home to Rayo Vallecano. And that'll do it for this episode. We're still going to have episodes next week because we have the Conference League on Wednesday, I believe, and also the Champions League final on Saturday. But after that, probably do some season wrap-up episodes and things of that nature. Thanks for following along this whole time. If you've been with me, this 202 episodes now, really appreciate that. Hope that this gives some value to you looking to bet the La Liga final day here on the 4th of June. And, enjoy yourselves. Good luck. Win some money. Slide us some DMs. If you also check out my Patreon, patreon.com, @thereal_G Warner. There'll be plenty of baseball stuff coming out there once we get this card out of the window. See you all soon. Talk to you all soon. And thanks for the support. Ciao.